all comes down to this. The Calgary Flames have their most important game of the season tonight against the newly reinforced Minnesota Wild. In a do-or-die game, the Flames have to play their best, but there's certain tiebreakers that could also come into effect if the Flames are going to overcome their slim postseason chances and sneak into the Stanley Cup Playoffs. Get your popcorn ready for tonight. We're going to get into all that and more in this video, but first I want to welcome you to Flames Digest. I'm Mark Griffith. If you're new around here and you love the Flames, make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest news, updates, reports, and rumors revolving around your Calgary Flames. We would love to welcome you to the Flames Digest family. Come on, guys, let's hit 3,500 subscribers by the end of the regular season. It would mean the world to me. Maybe 4,000 by the time free agency rolls around. I know you guys can do it. I love you guys so much. Really appreciate your support. Love the community we have here, despite this Flame season maybe not ending the way most of us wanted. But let's get into that. This cannot be ignored. This is a kind of serious title for this video. I was going to call it something completely different. The bosses decided to change it around, but we got a good one here. So this cannot be ignored. What is it? Well, it is those pesky tiebreakers that could maybe actually end up helping the Flames. And we have an amazing article here from Daniel Austin of the Calgary Herald. All credit due to him for this one. So he writes, the big stat: could the NHL's playoff tiebreaker work in the Calgary Flames' favor and actually work out for us? We know what's important. Regulation wins, regulation or overtime wins over anything compared to the, lovely loser points we love to pick up. But could some of these tiebreakers actually end up working for us? Very interesting. Let's dive in. So even if the Flames win the rest of their games, it might not matter if they can't secure 2 points in 60 minutes each and every time. So they have to do it in regulation. So on Wednesday in Anaheim, it wasn't just that the Flames let a precious point slip away when Gauthier buried the OT winner. When the Ducks scored 2 late goals in 8 seconds late in the game to force overtime, that alone could wind up having an impact on the Flames' playoff chances. Yes, no matter what, it sucked that the Flames blew that lead, and that's the fact of the matter, that it ended up even going to overtime. And then, of course, the Flames losing was just, the cherry on top. That really was the stab to the heart of every Flames fan, the punch in the gut. But overall, just going past regulation isn't good enough for the Flames right now. So how does the NHL tiebreaker work? Well, the best case scenario over the next week for the Flames is that they finish ahead of the Blues or Wild in the standings, and none of this winds up mattering. Maybe the tiebreakers won't matter at all. Either one of St. Louis or Minnesota falls off, and we absolutely go on a tear in these last 4 games. Technically, the Oilers are still within striking distance, but they're 7 points ahead of the Flames and own the tiebreaker. If they pick up even 1 point in their last 4 games, it won't matter. So we'll leave them out of this for the most part. Yes, it's essentially the Oilers haven't clinched, but they're in, essentially. If 2 teams do finish with the same number of points in the standings at the end of the regular season, though, that's when the tiebreaker kicks in. That's what we're all here for. That's what cannot be ignored. That basically means that regulation wins matter most, followed by overtime victories and finally shootouts. So wins are what matter. For the Flames, it pretty much has to be in regulation, then OT, and then just wins in general. So the way the tiebreakers work is regulation wins are the most valuable. Then regulation or overtime wins, and then just any type of win, whether it's in regulation, overtime, or a shootout, is what ends up mattering the most. So the regulation wins, that's where the tiebreaker comes in, if obviously teams were to be tied at the end of the season. There are other tiebreakers that come into effect if the 2 we've listed above don't separate 2 teams that are tied on points, but they're not going to make any difference in the Western Conference wildcard race this season. It's funny how certain leagues do their tiebreakers. You think of the NFL, it kind of goes with what was your record against your own conference. Could we see the NHL kind of bring something like that in a more valuable sense than just simply wins? I think wins is what is most important for sure. A lot of people are saying, should they just change the way the point system works, do it more like, soccer/European football, where it's, a win is 3. Maybe a tie is 1. A certain type of win could be 2. Kind of how they do it in international hockey, I guess, is the better comparison I can make there. But either way, the tiebreakers that matter for us are those regulation wins. So how could it end up impacting us? Why does the tiebreaker matter for the Flames? There are 2 teams the Flames have a chance of catching in the standings, the Minnesota Wild and the St. Louis Blues. Now, both those teams currently have 93 points, although the Wild have 3 games remaining and the Blues only have 2. The Flames have 88 points, so 5 points behind, with 4 games left on their schedule. That means that if they win all 4, they'd finish the year with 96 points. Now, obviously, it's a bit of wishful thinking to be like, hey, The Flames are going to win all their games and end on 96 points. We must make the playoffs on 96 points, right? Well, in a scenario where the Blues or Wild drop points in their remaining games and the Flames go on an undefeated run, that's where the tiebreaker will come into effect. And there's different ways this can happen, of course. It's not that unlikely either, according to Daniel Austin. So, maybe it's a long shot that the Flames will win all 4, but even if they win 3 of 4 and finish with 94 points, they'd still wind up tied on points with the Blues if they were to lose against the Kraken in regulation and lose in overtime to the Utah Hockey Club on the season's final day, or vice versa. So essentially, a regulation loss and an OT loss, and it could happen, and the Flames would only have to win 3. The Wild, meanwhile, have a head-to-head with the Flames on Friday night before the second game of a back-to-back against the Canucks on Saturday and a final game against the Ducks on Tuesday. It's not entirely inconceivable that the Flames could find themselves tied with either team. They just need to win out, and of course, in regulation. The Blues, though, could be caught. I skipped a little bit of the article. I've skipped a lot of it. Go read the whole thing if you really want. It's a really great article. It essentially means like the Blues are easier to catch than Minnesota. So the Blues, though, could be caught, and the tiebreaker could play out in the Flames' favor. How? This is, I guess, what cannot be ignored. So, the scenario. The Flames win their final 4 games, all in regulation. The Blues win 1 game in overtime and lose the other in overtime or a shootout. So how the tiebreaker would play out in that scenario, the Flames finish with 96 points and 32 regulation wins. The Blues finish with 96 points and 31 regulation wins. Very interesting overall. So the result is that the Flames would qualify by virtue of regulation wins. Again, it's a lot of wishful thinking. A lot of things would have to go the Flames' way. It's just overall, could we see it happen? Potentially. It's going to be difficult. One last thing. So unfortunately, every other scenario where the Flames finish tied with the Blues would see that the St. Louis squad preparing for the postseason and the Flames packing their bags and planning for next year. Again, there's many different scenarios that actually could end up happening. It's just almost all of them aren't realistic for the Flames. If the two teams finish tied on points and regulation wins, the second tiebreaker kicks in, and that includes overtime wins in the calculation. Already, the Blues have 39 combined regulation and overtime wins, while the Flames only have 33. There's just no catching them. It has to be regulation wins. So if the Flames are going to make the playoffs, they A, need to win all their remaining games in regulation and hope the Blues don't pick up more than 3 points, possible, with none of them coming in regulation wins, or B, finish ahead of the Blues flat out, which again, possible, but maybe a little bit unlikely. So there's still a chance, cannot be ignored. I know yesterday's video was called It's Over, and most Flames fans, most hockey fans think it just is over for the Flames, but we will, of course, just have to wait and see. But hey, there is still a chance. So you're telling me there's a chance. Let's get into what this all kind of comes down to. It all comes down to this. It all comes down to, of course, tonight's game, which is what I usually call the chapter of this video, but it all does come down to this. So it is game day for the Flames. They play that huge one against the Minnesota Wild. This one goes at 8 p.m. at the Dome, a good home game for us. Last time we played Minnesota, it was quite chippy. This time, I see it being no different with playoff implications on the line, of course. Minnesota did just get some very good reinforcements that are already producing like crazy, so it's going to be a tough one no matter what. We'll just have to see which kind of Flames come out tonight. If they do end up losing, they're pretty much knocked out, and maybe that means we'll get to see some of the young guys. Maybe Parekh will play, Sunyev, maybe even guys like Cairns can come back up, or I'd love to see Sam Morton, or just any of those guys with the Wranglers, but we will have to see as if we take a look at the lineup for tonight. So these are the lines, essentially pretty much the exact same. So Huberdeau, Kadri, Klapka on the top line. Great to see Klapka getting up there. Coleman, Backlund, Coronato, Farabee, Frost, and Sharkey, and then Lomberg, Rooney, and Pospisil. So essentially swapping Klapka and Pospisil there. D pairings are the exact same. Miramanov in place of Andersson this morning. Parekh was the odd man out when they were doing line rushes, so he will not be in tonight. And Dustin Wolf is your starter. Who would have seen that coming? It's absolutely fantastic. And it really does matter, because if we take a look at the money puck wheel here, the Flames have a 10% chance to make it, which is actually higher than I thought it would have been after our most recent results. And obviously Minnesota picking up that big win. But It seems as though St. Louis is now the easier team to catch up. It almost seems like they kind of crisscross every single day now. But St. Louis, it's possible. Minnesota, we still need, a big win here tonight. And hopefully the Flames can get that done. No matter what, just play some entertaining hockey for the fans. Hopefully it's a wonderful game. Now let's wrap up this video with the comment of the day, as we love to do here on the channel. And it comes from yesterday's video. And this was a pretty good comment right here. A lot of people talking about Ryan Huska. Many people think he should be fired. Many people think he shouldn't be fired. More people definitely think he shouldn't be fired. I agree. But one fell swoop. They said it's not the coach's fault. It's the players. Except for some of the OT decisions, I've been pretty happy with Huska. I'm assuming you're talking about for the entire season. And that's true. Sometimes the lines don't need to change as much as they do. And sometimes it is questionable who is put out during overtime. And I'd even argue the power play, but that might not be Huska's fault at all. Either way, Huska got us this far when no one expected it. Obviously, as well as certain players like Wolf, Ball, Kadri, etc. But it is true. I think Huska obviously deserves to still be with the franchise, and he's done a fantastic job. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe like you saw here today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.